Good afternoon, everybody. This is Adrienne Montgomery with ERP VAR. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm joined by Simon Quinn over at CertaPro, Nick Young, Product Manager at CertaPro, Stacy Schultz over at Brackus-Blum. She's going to be taking us through the field service component, Sage 100 Field Service Job Ops, and also by Patty Benitez and Patricia Garay. Patricia's the Channel Account Manager, and Patty Benitez is the Senior Vice President of Sales and Channel Marketing over at APS Payments. And CertaPro, just a little bit about CertaPro. They're based in Los Angeles. They're a leader in integrating Magento with Sage 100 Cloud. It's powered by eLink, and it's a two-way connector that handles the data connection points for business partner portals and B2B, B2C e-commerce needs. And they're a Magento technology partner, and they're also Sage certified developers, and they have a team of consultants, technicians, CPAs, and programmers that can help you with all kinds of Sage 100 requirements and needs, in addition to their Magento technology expertise. And Brackus-Blum, a little bit about Brackus-Blum. They're a long-time Sage 100 certified reseller serving the Midwest area. They've been implementing job ops and Sage 100 Cloud manufacturing for over 20 years. And they are the all-time sales leader of job ops. And that's the manufacturing component of Sage 100 Cloud. Job ops also has field service under its umbrella. So that's what we'll be laser focusing on today within job ops. They've been implementing Sage products for over 25 years. And they're one of the top Sage resellers in the Midwest region. And APS Payments, they provide integrated payment solutions. They are a full-service merchant services provider, and they're trusted by thousands of merchants daily to process payments. And they get you the lowest credit card processing rate by reducing the risk and providing all of the information about the customer up to the credit card processing companies to lower the credit card processing rate and let you keep more of that profit in your pocket. And we're just a little bit about the workflow here. We're going to be talking about how an order comes into the Magento e-commerce portal and how that is integrated with Sage 100 Cloud. So all that information goes back into Sage 100 Cloud. And then we're going to be talking about job ops, field service, and dispatch that helps you manage your service tickets with ease, track costs, dispatch employees, and increase your overall profitability. And then, as I said, we're going to be talking about how APS Payments takes all the information that's been indicated in Sage 100 Cloud to push it through level 3 credit card processing to decrease that credit card processing rate. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Simon to kick it off for the Magento e-commerce piece. Thank you, Simon.
Great, thanks so much, Adrienne. Appreciate it. So my name is Simon Quinn. I'm the Director of Sales for CertaPro, and also with me, I have Nick Young, who is our eLink Product Manager, which is the product that we're going to be discussing today. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of the concept of eLink software and Magento, and then I'm going to hand it over to Nick, and he's going to perform some more of the fun stuff, which will be to show you the actual syncing between the Magento e-commerce platform and Sage. So hopefully we'll cover a number of questions, but there will be a Q&A at the end of this webinar, and we can address additional questions at this time. While this is going to be shown in 100, I just wanted to point out quickly that what we're going to see today is also available for 300, for 500, and for X3. So often successful online businesses will reach a point where they're spending more time and money managing data in both their web store and in Sage. So you're managing product information, prices, stock levels, customer information, and web orders across 2 platforms. It can become problematic and is a real pain point. So with the e-commerce platform seamlessly integrated to your Sage ERP, using CertaPro's eLink software with Magento, key information will now be synchronized between both systems. So this reduces the time spent dealing with data entry in 2 systems, and it maximizes profits and improves customer satisfaction. So CertaPro has created a product called eLink, and it's a syncing technology that is a powerful tool which synchronizes data both ways. So your Sage product and customer information can now be updated to your web store or your portal 24/7. Online orders can now be created in Sage and are ready to be processed within minutes. And so this is all completed without running manual batch jobs or any manual export-import procedures. So it's automatic. So the data securely flows between Sage and the web store in encrypted files, which makes your company's back end completely anonymous and secure. And because the web store is hosted outside of your Sage environment, the customer never has direct access to Sage. So having an online store or web portal means that you're open for business all the time. Now you can have an integrated e-commerce solution with your Sage ERP. And CertaPro's eLink software integrated with Sage and Magento now makes it approachable and affordable for your business to have an online presence for both B2B and for B2C. So I want to take a quick step back and just cover what is Magento and why Magento. So Magento is an e-commerce platform, and there's both a community or a free version and a commerce or paid option available. And we can discuss that separately, offline if there's questions on that. And the world's biggest brands love Magento for its flexibility because today's consumers and their buying patterns are changing by the minute. So only Magento, which is both open source and agile, can help your customers adapt and thrive. There's a global ecosystem of over 150,000 developers, and with a network solution partner like CertaPro, Magento boosts online sales while maximizing gross margins. Magento businesses sell more at a lower total cost of operation than merchants on other competitive commerce platforms. So Magento gives you the flexibility to customize and extend your platform to create unique, differentiated branded experiences. And the Magento marketplace is the world's largest and most versatile, offering numerous customized and tested extensions. And these extensions can extend a store's features any way you want. So how does eLink work? So eLink is actually two parts. So one is an API that runs on top of the Sage server that allows us to talk to Sage using the Sage business objects. So what does that mean? So with our eLink API, if you tell it to go and create an order, it's actually going to create the order as if you're tabbing through all the fields in Sage. So it's not just putting data in a database. Any business logic that's built into Sage, we're going to be following all of the same business logic with the eLink API. And we'll cover this a little more in Nick's demo. So we built out the software for both sides of Magento and Sage, and we built them from the ground up. And doing so gives us the flexibility to create a plethora of modifications and customizations that you may need. So we create and author everything in-house, and we only build these applications for Sage and Magento. So we are Sage and Magento-centric. It's all that we do. But we can also take eLink a step further. If you need to have a mobile application, we can also provide you with that. So we can build and develop a native mobile app, and these apps will be available in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Nick, and we're going to jump into the demo to show you how Magento and eLink actually works. Nick, over to you.
Thank you, Simon. Let's share my screen. Okay, so this is our Luma store. This is just a fresh copy of Magento, and then with the Magento demo data, and then we have our eLink installed on here. So everything here is out of the box that you're seeing. So I'm just going to run through a couple of transactions. We'll place a sales order. We'll invoice that sales order so you can see how the information goes back to Magento, and I'll show you a couple of other features that we have for our product. So go ahead and go to the women's tops here. Products are coming from Sage. So in Sage, if you set a product to internet enabled, we'll go ahead and we'll create that product in the web automatically. We bring over the information from Sage, such as product name. We bring over inventory levels so you can control in stock and out of stock on the web. And we bring over all of the customer pricing from Sage. So if you have quantity breaks set up, if you have contract pricing for your customers, if you're using price levels, whatever the pricing you have set up in Sage, we bring all of that over to the web. So when the customer is logged into their own account, they see their actual price for the product when they're looking at it on the web. I'm going to go ahead and just select a couple of tops from the page. And we'll add these to the cart. And then we'll head over to the checkout. So once we get to the checkout, you'll see at the top we have customer addresses, which will take just a second. Okay, so addresses are coming from Sage. So your customer registers online, they link their existing customer account that you have with them, and all of their information comes into the web automatically. They get instant access to their invoices, history, payment history, and then all of their address information comes over so they don't have to re-enter their addresses when they go to actually place orders with you. We'll go ahead and hit standard shipping methods. Magento has support for all of the different shipping carriers out of the box, and then there's some third-party solutions for doing stuff like LTL and things like that as well. Once we get to payments, you can see we have our two methods that we add here. One is the bill me. Bill me is controlled by the customer's payment terms in Sage. So you set up which payment terms you want to be credit card only. If the customer has a actual terms account, the bill me option will show up for them. If they're a credit card only account or an account that doesn't have terms, then the bill me option will disappear and they'll be forced to check out with a credit card. I'm going to go ahead and check out with credit card so we can show that integration. If you're using any of the integrated solutions for credit card in Sage, such as APS, who's with us today, and Patty will talk about that later, we have full integration with those solutions with Magento as well. So what we'll do is we'll do a pre-authorization on the web, and then that pre-authorization transaction and tokens will be brought in with the sales order into Sage, and the actual charge or post-authorization will happen during the invoicing process in Sage. So it uses your standard flow for credit cards as if you entered the credit card directly on the order inside of Sage. I'm going to use the Save credit card. You'll notice the credit card has its own billing address that could be separate from the billing address on the order. So if I'm, say, adding a new credit card, I have the choice to use the order billing address or put in a credit card specific billing address. So this really helps with if you're using a card that may not be associated with the particular business address, but you want to make sure that the invoice has, you know, the billing address for the header, you don't have to worry about address validation on the credit card. So we'll just put in our verification number. We'll place this order. This is going to place the order and add it to our queue. This is a syncing system, but the syncing is all happening automatically in the background using secure connection to Sage. The reason we're using a syncing system is you want to make sure that if your Sage isn't available for some particular reason, your internet goes down, you're doing maintenance on the database, you're upgrading Sage, whatever the reason may be, the website can still stay up, you know, 99.999% of the time. Your customers can still come online, they can place orders, they can print their invoices, they can make payments on their account. They have no idea that your system's unavailable. If we go over to the orders, this is already moved. This order would have been in pending orders while it's waiting to be sent to Sage. This one already got sent to Sage and has come back to the web. So you can see I have the actual Sage sales order number here. This web order or confirmation number is the Magento order number. So I'll show you that in Sage. We actually bring this number in too. So when your customer calls into customer service and all they have is this number, you can still look that up in Sage. So we will go ahead and open Sage, which I should have had open before we started, but okay. And we'll check out this sales order that we just placed. So if we go to the sales order lookup, this is what I was talking about just a second ago. We do bring that web order number into the sales order in a custom field. So you can look the order up by that, even if the customer doesn't have their actual Sage sales order number. Here you can see we did the credit card pre-authorization. We're using the business objects in Sage. So we load the customer, all the customer's defaults get loaded, tax schedules, everything else. You don't have to worry about if you have business logic built into Sage, we'll be following all that same logic. Here you can see those two shirts that I put in the cart, the addresses that I checked out with. If I had changed the address during the checkout, those would be reflected here. We have our totals. You can see we put out in the credit card payments, and then here's the credit card transaction. So this is like any order that you would put directly in Sage. Orders from the web are really no different. We'll go ahead and invoice this order manually. If you're using any sort of shipping solution, such as Starship or anything like that, we are just grabbing tracking numbers from the standard tracking table, which they'll be putting the tracking numbers into. So the integration will work all the way through from those solutions to the web as well. And we'll just ship this complete. And then we'll let that sync back to the web. So while that syncs back to the web, I'll show you a couple of the other options you have on the web for your customers. So like Simon said, this is for B2C and B2B. We have some customers who don't even use the store part of Magento. They're just using it for an online portal. So one of the things you want to be able to do is allow your customers to make payments and see their payment history. So we have our payments extension, which allows the customer to see all of their payment history. One thing I'll point out is you'll notice, say, sales orders. We have this sales order with no web order number on it. We're bringing all of the history from Sage, regardless of where it originates. So you're not just seeing the history that comes from the web. If customer service places an order directly in the system, the customer goes on their account on the web, they'll see that order and all of the history related to that order. So same with payments. The payment history is if they send in a check, they'll be able to look at the check, what invoices that was applied to, and see their entire payment history here as well. We have some options for making a deposit or making a payment. Making a deposit will allow them to place a deposit on the account that's not applied to any specific invoice. We'll go ahead and make a payment so I can show you the functionality of how that works. When I go to make a payment, at the top, I will have available to me all of the same payment methods I checked out with. So if I'm checking out and I save my credit card during the checkout, I'll also have that available here during payments later. We support ACH if your account is set up for ACH with your processor. So a customer could come in here, they could enter their account number, routing number, and do an actual ACH transaction as well. We'll use that same demo card we used during the checkout, and we'll add a couple of invoices to the register. And if you allow them to, they can make short payments. So this top invoice, I only want to pay $600 right now. I can add. This is going to do a charge at the time I hit place payment rather than a pre-authorization like the sales order. So you don't have to worry about whether the funds are available or not. This will actually charge the card. And then this will be brought in as a cash receipt into Sage, applied to those invoices already. And I'll show you that in one moment. Another thing that we have, which is good for B2B customers, is we have our quick order entry form. So your B2B customers, you want to be able to place orders more like a PO. They may not want to go through the whole shopping experience. They can come in here, they can type in SKUs if they know them, just type in SKUs and quantities, or they can do quick search for products by description or SKU, select the products that they want to add them to the form, update their quantities, and then hit add to cart and checkout. This is going to add all of these products to the cart and go directly to the checkout. So it's really a quick way for them to enter an order, more like a PO entry type situation. If we go back to our sales orders, you can see now we have that invoice. And then we also have an invoices view for the transaction history as well. We have all these searches up top where they can search for the invoice by specific information. So if they know the item that they ordered, they can search for the invoices by that item. And you can see this is that invoice we just created today, and it's got our tracking number that we put in there. And if we view the invoice detail, these are the actual shipped items that are on that invoice. If we go look at the sales order detail, you can see at the bottom of the sales order is also any relevant invoices along with the tracking information. So no matter how they're looking at the particular transaction, they'll be able to see the entire history. And then all of these screens have print versions, which can be modified to look like your actual printed forms. So they can print copies of their invoices and they don't have to ask you to fax or send them to them. Let's go back into Sage and look at that cash receipt. And you can see when I open cash receipts, I have a batch from today. And it's telling me that it came from the web. And if we look at the actual deposit for that cash receipt, we can see that we made a cash receipt for $1,255 and we automatically applied that to the invoices. And that top one, we only applied $600. So after we post this, we're going to have $1,600 balance remaining on that invoice. So there's no manual entry when it comes to processing the payment. You don't have to try to figure out which invoices the customer wanted to pay. When they make that payment online, they get to select how they want to pay it. Lastly, I'll show you our RMA quickly. We have full integration with the Sage RMA module as well. So customers can come online, they can request an RMA, they can add items from their existing invoices. You can filter this list. So say you only allow 90 days worth of returns. You can make it so this list only shows 90 days worth of invoice history so that they can only select from those. They can add those to here. Return reasons are set up in Sage, and then you can filter those on the web. So maybe you don't want defective showing on your website, but you need that as an internal return reason. You can filter these so that they only show the ones you want them to show. Same with actions. If you don't want to allow credit on the web, you only want replacement or repair, then you can filter that so credit's not available. Customer selects all the options, and then they place the RMA. This is going to go and create an RMA inside of Sage. Unlike the sales orders that moved down when it got sent to Sage, this is going to stay up here in pending until you actually go and set that RMA to open. So it'll come in as a new RMA, and when you set it to open, it'll move down here with the actual RMA number, send out the notification to the customer, and all that good stuff. We have some other features that don't really have time to show today, so if you're interested, you should definitely set up a personalized demo. We have the apps that Simon discussed. We have customer-specific products where if you have proprietary products, you can assign those to the customer. And then we have like a multi-customer functionality where one customer can log in but have access to multiple Sage customers' history and things like that. So that being said, I appreciate everybody who was able to join us today. I'm going to go ahead and pass this back to Simon to wrap up.
Great, thanks so much, Nick. I'm just going to take 30 seconds and wrap up here. I know we're doing Q&A at the end of this webinar, but I know that from our experience, no two websites or web portals are the same. So every site has a unique look and feel. Whatever the case might be, CertaPro can build it. So we're not only a Gold Sage development partner, but we're also a Magento technology partner. We have Magento developers in-house. So if you need an end-to-end e-commerce solution or a business partner portal, we can manage the entire process for you. If you just need the eLink software piece to connect Sage to your existing sites, we can work with you or your Sage business partner or web development team to provide recommendations and solutions to get that accomplished. So with that, we'll hand this over to Stacy, and we can get moving on there. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to start off in the dispatch board today, and I'm just going to jump right in. Hopefully won't have to go through a PowerPoint, may have to at the end to show a little bit more additional functionality, but we'll see how far we can get. All right, the dispatch board has the number of days forward and backwards that you choose to set up in the options. So in my case, I have 2 days backwards and 5 days forward. You can see that there's a red box around this day. That is the day that you see down here. So if you want to move around, you can go ahead and select up there, and then it will reflect that in the main view. But we want to look, it's always going to default to today's view. We can see all our different technicians and all their current statuses, and any specific service tickets that are scheduled for those people. We have all our open service tickets down in this section. We've got a list of some built-in alerts in this section, and if we highlight any of the service tickets, we're going to see equipment information down in this section, and that's going to show us if there's a problem code on that service ticket, what we're servicing, where it's located, whether or not there's a warranty on the parts, whether or not there's a warranty on the labor, and if there's a service agreement that does time and material or does on-demand service. So when we want to create a new service call, we can go ahead and click on the new call button. And that's going to bring up the service ticket entry screen. And the way that you fill this in is going to be dependent on what information you have. If you're talking to the person that's calling in that's reporting it, you can enter in their customer number and add the contact. Or if you know their serial number, you can go to the repair tab and go to the manufactured serial number, and if it's something you repaired before, it's going to be out in your equipment asset file, which we'll go through in a bit, but it will be listed in there, and you can double click on it, and if you do that, it's going to backfill all the information about whether or not this is covered under a service agreement, whether or not it's a warranty repair, what kind of time you expect to take that's needed to be able to perform this service. If we go back to the main tab, you can see who the customer is, who the contact is at the customer, etc. So we have all the information filled in automatically if we can pull it in by the serial number. If we go to the additional tab, we can add some additional notes as far as what needs to happen on this service call. So as far as dispatching notes. So we can add that information so the technicians know what's going on when they get there. We can go ahead and accept it. When we do that, it's going to show up in our open service ticket list. And we'll, again, see that equipment information for that particular piece of equipment if it's available. If we have that one highlighted and go to the details, we can see that piece of equipment that we're servicing. And if we're doing multiple pieces of equipment, we'd see all the different pieces of equipment that needed to be serviced here. If we have it, we'll be able to see each of the individual dispatch notes. And if we have it set up, you can see who the preferred technicians are for this particular customer. Once we schedule it, you'll be able to see who's been scheduled for it in the past as well as in the future, the date and time and the amount of hours that they're scheduled for it. If we go to the parts required, if you have it set up to do so, it's going to show you the parts that are typically required to service this particular piece of equipment. If it's associated with a problem code, which I forgot to talk about, which we'll go back to in just a second, and the trucks or the technicians that have those parts. So we'll be able to see all that information to help us determine who we want to schedule for this particular service call. Now, if we go back to the service ticket itself, as I said, I forgot to talk about the problem codes. Within on the repair tab, there's a problem and resolution code where you can track what the problem was on this particular thing, and then you can write reports to determine whether or not this item code has that problem happening over and over. So we can go ahead and see that information if we start tracking that information along the way. I can go ahead and accept it, and now if I know who I want to perform the service, I can right-click on it and schedule it. When I click on that, I can come out here and I can add it to the dispatch board, and it will automatically put my call out there. If I need to include another technician on the service call, I can go ahead and hit the control button and drag and drop it. And it's going to say, hey, wait a second, what do you want to do with this? Because the white time is the time the technicians are available. The gray time is the time that they're typically not available. And in this particular case, we went over into the gray time. So it's saying, do you want to split into multiple days? Do you want to cancel the request, or do you want to make an exception? And I'm going to go ahead and make an exception. And then when it refreshes, it's going to let me put it on the technician's calendar for later on today. And then if you look on the bottom, we can see that Stacy is scheduled for it as well as Todd. Once it's on the dispatch board, we can go ahead and resize it. We can drag and drop it, whatever's needed based on how we want to schedule these technicians. Once the technicians are scheduled, again, you see that information down here. When you collect the data back, and there's multiple different ways you can collect that information, and one of them is through the technician dashboard. I'm not going to go through that to begin with, so if you guys want to see that, just let us know. Hopefully we'll have time at the end, but maybe not. But we'll go ahead and go into service ticket billing. If the data is collected through the technician dashboard, it will automatically populate into service ticket billing. We'll go ahead and grab who the technician is that's doing the work. We can go into the service ticket that we want to put in the information. If we look at this, it's going to default into a final bill. If we want to toggle it, we can toggle it to a partial bill instead of a final, or keep it as a final bill. We can highlight the thing that we're servicing. We can then add parts, labor, and expenses. If I go ahead and add a part, I can start typing in whatever that part number is that we need here. So I can go ahead and add that. It's automatically going to default from my truck. If I want to change the warehouse, I can change the warehouse, and I can put the quantity in that we're issuing. And in this case, it's a lot tracked item, so we're going to have to put the lot number. So I'm going to grab the specific lot, click OK, and exit. Now on this screen, we can also switch to the different transactions. So I can switch over to the transactions to see my parts, labor, and expenses. So now I've got my part out there. I can also add labor. And let's say that I was there from let's see, 7:45 to 9 o'clock. So I was there for an hour and a half, or an hour and 15 minutes. I can also put in the information about the work that was performed. You can also see above whether or not this is covered under warranty, whether or not it's covered, a service agreement covers it, whether or not labor is covered on the service agreement or labor is covered on warranty. Because this is a warranty repair, it's coming through as a billable amount of 0, but we're still tracking the hours so we know how much it cost us. We can click OK and exit. And now if I go into the expenses, if we do any kind of trip charge or mileage or any of that kind of stuff, we can put that information in here as well. And it will automatically default in the amount based on the way you have it set up. If it's something that you're reimbursing the employee, you can check that off, and then you can create a report for their expense report of what they need to be reimbursed for. And again, on the top, you can see whether or not this is under warranty, whether or not it's covered on service agreements, and whether or not stuff should be chargeable. I'm going to say OK and exit. Once you have everything in here for this particular service agreement or for this particular service call, you can either update the changes and go into invoicing later, or you can update an invoice. If we go ahead and update an invoice, it's going to take us over to sales order invoice data entry. When we go to the lines on the invoice, it's going to show us the different things that we're invoicing them for, as well as the unit price or the extended price for the invoice that's being created. If this is all correct, we can go ahead and process it. And if we want, we can go ahead and process all the dailies so that we have everything that we need to be able to update our update the equipment asset file. So now that that's been invoiced, we can go ahead and go into the equipment asset file. And the equipment asset file is going to be a file that's going to go and basically track everything associated with this particular piece of equipment. If I go ahead and select that equipment, we're going to be able to see what our warranty is, what the dates are for the parts and for the labor. We can also see who owns this piece of equipment. If somebody else purchases the equipment from this customer, we can go ahead and change that, who owns the equipment, so that you can continue servicing it and continue to keep all the equipment information together. If you want to track additional pieces of that equipment, you can go ahead and set those up as well, so that you have a hierarchy of different equipment that's included, different pieces of this equipment, so that you have all the different pieces, so that if there is a warranty from your vendor, you will keep that information as well. So if you had to swap it out, you can see that information and get it over to your vendor to get a replacement item. If we go to the additional tab, you're going to have your total revenue to date and your total cost to date on this particular piece of equipment, based on if you sold it, how much you sold it for, so the revenue that you got in from that, as well as the revenue that you got in for service calls against the cost that it took you to build it, if you build it, or if you're selling it out of stock, all your what you bought it for, and what the cost is on all your service calls. So it's going to calculate all that information for you, and you can see on this one that it's pretty much of a loser for me so far. If we go over to the parts, you can see the parts that are typically required for this particular piece of equipment. If we go to the transactions, you're going to be able to see each of the different transactions that has happened up against this piece of equipment. And if we highlight any of these transactions, we're going to be able to drill in to the invoice. And I've got an enhancement that I did not upgrade, so it's going to make me update that before I can drill into my invoice. but it's going to show us the information about what was billed, and it's going to allow us to go over into the service ticket for that particular piece, for what happened, or for that particular service call. And if you had any parts, it's going to show you the parts. And if you had labor that was reported, you'd be able to see the labor. If we highlight it, you can see the invoice that was billed on. If you have the rights to do so, you can take a look at the cost associated with those hours. If you go to the statuses, you can see what the statuses status changes were. So if the technician went out and evaluated it, had to come back into the office, get some parts, go back out and perform the service, you can use different status codes to reflect what the status is on that work ticket or service ticket. And then on the summary, you're going to be able to see what your budgeted hours are, and the profit analysis, you can see what your costs are for this work ticket. So you'd be able to get to all that information from within the equipment asset file. If we go to the service history, you're going to be able to see any service tickets for it. So you can see that service ticket that we just created. And if you wanted to, you could drill into that service ticket as well and see that additional information. And since we didn't complete the invoice, we're going to have our parts that we put on, the expense for the mileage. If we go to the labor, you're going to have the amount of time that was spent there, etc. So you'll be able to see all that information for each and every service call. The other thing that I want to quick go over before I run out of time is service agreements. And again, if we have additional time, or if you want additional information, feel free to give me a call, but we can go through a personalized demo for anybody that needs it. But we also have the tech dashboard, which is part of this, that I'm going to run out of time. I'm not going to be able to get to it today. But we can go into the service agreement maintenance quick and take a look. Service agreements, you can set up a service agreement for that customer, which is going to dictate the billing for on-demand service, as well as any preventative maintenance service agreements that you have with them. So the main tab is going to go through and say for the service agreement when it starts and ends, if it's billable, when it's been billed through, which I'm way overdue for billing this, and some basic setup stuff. If we go to the billing tab, it's going to show us that this is a fixed price billing and that our standard labor rate is $70 an hour. That's what we negotiated with this client. This is the deferred revenue for when we build a service contract, and it's billed on a quarterly basis. If we go into the equipment, it's going to show us the equipment that is included on the service agreement, and we can set up these service contracts and have a bunch of PMs underneath it. So even though our rate was $70 an hour for an on-demand service, for this particular piece of equipment, we're going to do $50 an hour. We can also drill into the preventative maintenance agreements. And you can see I've got two different preventative maintenance agreements for this. One that's done every 3 months, one that's done once a year. It's a fixed price contract, or it's a fixed price preventative maintenance, and this is what we're going to charge them each time. Any of these things where it's fixed or prepaid, you can do it as prepaid, time and material, or fixed price. And I believe I'm at the end of my time frame, so hopefully this was a quick overview for you, and it was useful in knowing a little bit more about the field service and dispatch product. And I'm going to hand it on over to Patty to go through the payments options.
Thank you so much, Stacy. Great presentation so far by everybody. I just wanted to recap on what we've seen so far today. With CertaPro, you were actually able to see how you can create and manage a business partner portal or website for your customers, allowing your customers to place and track orders 24/7, view their customer-specific pricing and inventory levels, view their sales orders, invoices, shipments, and tracking information, and then, of course, making the online payments, right? Nowadays, it's crucial to have that availability and just let your customers pay as soon as they'd like to pay. With job ops, and I really loved your presentation, Stacy. It's very, very helpful, very informative. The job ops field service and dispatch we talked about today. And just to recap, I understood it very well. You'll be able to manage your service tickets with ease, track cost and dispatch employees, and increase your overall profitability. What more can you ask for? And how does APS payments blend into this? So APS payments likes to come in at a negative cost. I'm going to talk a little bit about B2B payment processing and just understanding how the overall integrated payment process within Sage works. The slide you see on the screen right now, this is our team. And the reason I like to present our team is because of how diverse we are. Not only, as you can see, multiple cultures, but also in the expertise regarding all of the different aspects that would affect credit card processing in general. Meaning that we have ERP developers on staff, we have employees that used to work with the banks that we currently work with, we have credit card processing industry experts, and then you have someone like Patricia and myself that have worked with the channel for many, many years and are always here to advocate for our channel partners and channel customers. So anything you need, the bottom line is APS Payments is an all-in-one payment processor. We are the gateway, the integrator, and the processor. What does that mean to you? If you run into any issues, you have only one credit card processor to go to, and you don't have to go to multiple providers in order to obtain the solution to the issue that you encounter. Now, we like to begin by providing you with an understanding of how you can save money by processing credit card transactions through the CertaPro Magento integrator, through APS Payments within Sage, fully integrated. It all begins with choosing the right fee structure. Which is it for you? Now, there are three. Very simple to explain. The flat rate fee structure is something that everybody's very familiar with and typically likes it because there's really no confusion. You get one flat percentage plus a transaction fee and no other fees. Reconciliation is really easy. Here's the setback. You are not able to take advantage of programs that are put in place by the card brands, allowing you to lower your rates almost in half. And in some cases, much lower, depending on the volume of the transaction. The rate can go as low as 0.08%. You heard me correctly, and I underline it, 0.08%. Then we have tiered pricing. This gives the processors full control over how and where each transaction qualifies. So they offer three buckets: the non-qualified, mid-qualified, and fully qualified buckets. Not surprisingly, when we analyze statements that were brought to us with this tiered structure, we find that 99% of the transactions were not qualified, and most of the time the merchants do not understand how they were classified to begin with. So it's really giving the power to the processor. And mind you, this is a processor talking to you. So the last but not least fee structure is Interchange Plus. This is by far the most transparent fee structure. Why? Because it actually provides you the hard cost from the card brand directly. And then you get to negotiate with the processor a markup fee. Now, from that point forward, you have full control. The processor will then provide you with the contract and stipulate the actual markup fee. Most processors, such as APS, will guarantee that the rate will not increase. So you don't have to worry about the rates creeping up on you eventually. Once you choose your fee structure, you can take advantage of level 3 processing, right, depending on the fee structure you chose. Again, level 3 processing will lower your rates considerably. Now, the fields that are required in order to obtain level 3 rates are not available typically out of the box, but if you use the CertaPro Magento solution, you will receive the level 3 rates if you process with APS, and also within Sage. We take the fields and deliver them on your behalf automatically. So we guarantee that you will get the very lowest rates available in the industry. Most of these fields that you see on the screen, you probably do not use. So what we typically do is we create user-defined fields, pre-fill them in for you, and send them to Visa MasterCard on your behalf so you don't have to worry about keying anything in manually. Now take a look at the analysis document that's on the screen right now. If you've been multitasking at this moment, stop what you're doing, because this is the part that shows you how we can offset the cost of the solutions that were presented to you today. CertaPro, as well as the solution from Bacchus Blum that has to do with job costs. The savings on this analysis is a true analysis, by the way. It was a little over $63,000 a year. Now, the merchant that presented it to us was actually processing using a tiered structure, and we were able to save them a little over $10,000 a month. So, ladies and gentlemen, anybody interested in the solutions that you saw today, you have to contact me. Allow me to provide you with a free audit of your current merchant statements, and I will show you if there is any money that you're actually leaving on the table. Be curious. The worst case scenario, if I do analyze your statement, is that you can always go back to your current processor and show them that you found ways that you can save money processing your credit card transactions elsewhere. I guarantee 9 out of 10 times they will lower the rates. Now, other features that we offer are daily automatic batch reporting. We also have multi-currency capabilities. We do not charge for the APS Pays software. We provide assistance with installation, implementation, training, maintenance, and support. No charge at all to you. We provide live support 24/7. We also have a team that is dedicated exclusively to providing you assistance with PCI compliance. We make sure you either become and then remain PCI compliant. Now, what I'd like to do briefly is just walk you through the functionality within Sage. It's very straightforward because most of the functionality remains the same. You're able to create take advantage actually of the customers that you've already created within Sage and use the credit card information that you could have already entered in Sage. So in the Additionals tab, everybody's familiar with this area where you could actually create credit card information, choose a default payment type or card that you prefer. APS allows you to accept credit cards as well as ACH, and of course that's optional. We follow the security settings. You can see it's very simple. The card information is tokenized. We store it in our secured vault, so you don't have to worry about a security breach. And then the email address that can be set up per card can also be set up to receive a credit card receipt whenever you complete a transaction. This is the only time that you step outside of Sage, and notice how you really don't feel like you're stepping outside, and it's basically to key in the card information or update it. So once you do have the card information, you can process credit card transactions within sales order invoice data entry, as well as accounts receivable cash receipts, apply payments against invoices. There is one other area in which you can take advantage of Sage 100 functionality. It's called Click to Pay. You basically print your invoices using paperless Office, and the invoices are emailed to your customer. Your customer will receive the attached invoice, which is a standard crystal form that can be customized with a Click to Pay button on the body of the invoice. When they click on this button, they will be sent to a quick portal showing them details regarding the invoice that they just chose, allowing them to pay for additional invoices, click on the invoices and see additional details, and then submit their payment. The nice thing about this is that you, as a vendor, will not have to key anything in. Your customer will be given the option, if you want to pay with credit card as well as ACH. If they save their payment, they will be given login credentials so that they can access the portal in the future. If they decide to make a payment, notice how simple it is. They really have to just key in their credit card information or ACH information, and the payment is submitted into Sage accounts receivable cash receipts for you. In this case, the customer has submitted their credit card information. They will be notified if there were any discrepancies. Say, for example, they entered the wrong expiration date or the wrong card number to begin with. They'll get pop-up windows indicating the discrepancy. Otherwise, they'll get a success notification. You can also set up the system to send them an automatic receipt, and the automatic receipt looks something like a credit card receipt via email. So it looks something like this. And then back in Sage, the way for you to accept the payment is simply go to your cash receipts, where, as I mentioned before, you can also apply payments directly against an invoice. But instead of doing this manually, we will include an APS click to pay button. When you click on this button in the cash receipts deposit box, we will bring in all of the payments that were made using click to pay that day or up until that time. And then you can accept it and just view the payments already in the system for you, so you don't have to key them in. At this point, you just update your cash receipts and you're done. Everything will be updated, all of the relevant modules will be hit, and the funds will be captured. So long as you batch out by 9 p.m. Eastern time, we will have the funds in your bank account the next morning by 8 a.m. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, I encourage you, get a free audit of your current statements. It's not going to hurt you to find out if there is any savings to be had. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to you, Adrian.
Thank you so much, Patty. Thank you, Stacy, Simon, and Patty for your wonderful presentations. All right, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.